Hello guys, I figured that today I could do something a little bit different, but also kind of the same. Uh, I found this tag called the writer's tag, and being someone who is a writer, I figured that I could do that, and then also maybe talk a little bit about my collection of rating books. So let's get into the tag first, I guess, and then I'll talk a little bit about these books. So, this tag I found on the But I Smile Anyway blog, but it was originally created by Lorraine Ambers and Ari Meghlen. So, let's get into it. So, number one is name one novel that inspired you to write. I've probably mentioned this in a previous video before, but a book that definitely inspired me to be a writer would be The Princess Diaries, and really the Princess Diaries series as a whole. When I was in college, we kind of went over what we wanted to be writing and what kind of inspired us to write. And I talked a lot about Meg Cabot. Um, her books, especially the Princess Diaries series, really helped me out in high school. I was extremely shy, insecure, always feeling kind of awkward, a weird loser all of the time. And um, while I still pretty much felt that like that through the entirety of high school, um, her books had a way of just making me feel a little bit better about them, and about my, you know, awkwardness. um, they gave me a very clear message that, you know, whatever everybody goes through kind of like an awkward phase, and but you grow up and you hopefully grow out of it at some point. Um, but it's important to grow and believe in yourself and stand up for yourself and the people that you care about. And um, yeah, so I those really had an effect on me, and I wanted to write young adult fiction so that hopefully I could inspire someone else someday, or at least make them feel better and escape life for a little while when things get kind of shitty and angsty. Question two is, what is your favorite genre to write and read? Um, most of the time, so most of the things I have written has honestly had supernatural-ish tinges to it, or some of them could be considered, I guess, contemporary. Um, but what I really enjoy reading and what I really enjoy writing, but I forgot how much I enjoyed it, is mysteries. So that is definitely something I've been working on lately. Do you prefer to write standalone or series? Um, I like both, I guess. Most of what I write is standalone. Um, but I do have a 5-book series that I have been kind of tweaking, planning, and working on since um, college. So that's also some time in the works. The only problem with that is it's just very involved. Use 3 words to describe yourself. Uh, Anxious, eccentric, um, geeky. Reveal your work in progress aesthetics or an image that represents your MCR setting. My aesthetics. I don't really think I really have anything on hand that really goes with the aesthetics overall, what I've got going on. It has a lot of flashbacks to 2000 as well as, present day. But for setting, I guess maybe this works. Setting is in Vermont. um, let's see. How long did your first manuscript take draft? See, the thing is, I don't have a completed manuscript. Exactly. Like, I do have a halfway finished manuscript from a project that I had back in like college. But currently, the book I am almost finished with, I don't have a drafted manuscript right now. It's still in a basic writing format right now, at least up until the point when I can get other people to read it and critique it for me and help. And then I'll kind of transition it over to what it should look like. But yeah. Who is your author idol? So I probably mentioned Meg Cabot a lot, like a lot. She is definitely definitely one of my author idols. Another one that I would consider would be Stephen King, just because his story is very um, inspiring. Like, he didn't ever give up. He just kept writing and putting his rejection letters up on the wall. Um, and I know that he and his family weren't in a particularly great place when he first was published with Carrie, I believe was his first published work, um, or his first like fully published novel. But yeah, he just kept going. He worked shit jobs and he wrote as much as he could, and he kept sending things out, and he made it. So that's inspiring. Share a writing memory that made you determined to carry on. A writing memory, I guess, is more advice that I got from my professors back in college, to always, keep on writing and, find your thing, find what you're good at, and keep going and do it, and just, So I would say that what's made me more determined would be the advice that they passed on to me back when I was in school. Tell us something surprising or unique about yourself. I don't think there's anything that really surprising or unique, really. I mean, I'm double jointed in my elbows. I mean, is that unique? Uh, Share the hardest part about being a writer and how you overcame it. So, the hardest part, besides the fact that you have to make yourself work on stuff and write, even though you really don't want to, um, would be to try to get over your own personal critique. Um, the saying, you are your own worst critic, that is extremely true. Um, every time in the past that I have given up on something or just kind of put it aside, it has been because I told myself that I wasn't a good enough writer yet. I didn't have the time. I wasn't where I needed to be to actually get it done or do it justice or anything like that. So I think one of the hardest parts is just telling that voice to shut the fuck up and saying, you know what, I'm never gonna know unless I actually do it and I actually get it done. So, what is your favorite social media and why? Um, at this moment, I think my favorite social media thing to be on would be Instagram. Um, mostly because I have tailored mine to just be besides my friends, to also just show me things that make me happy. So, um, a couple of booktubers that I really enjoy. I follow them on Instagram. I follow a couple of writers on there, and I also just have it full of national parks. Um, see a lot of beautiful photographs of those, and also a lot of photographs and videos of cute animals. I follow a lot of animals. So yeah, that would be my favorite thing. Um, share some uplifting wisdom in 6 words or less. Um, one piece of wisdom that kind of really got at me last year was when I went to Vegas and saw Lady Gaga. And a couple of things that she said during her Enigma show was to, first of all, never give up on what you dream of, and also that passion takes discipline. So, yeah, just just fucking do it. So that is the writer's tag in general. Um, something else that I wanted to talk about in this video would be my writing books. I have a huge stack here, so I figured that I could go over these books. Let's get started on these. So first up on the pile, the fattest boy of this bunch is the 2011 Writers Market. I know this is extremely out of date, but I still keep it because my dad bought me this for kind of a late graduation present, and I hold on to it because he wrote in it, and also because you know what, places are probably still open, so I just have to go through and check them out. But yeah, I also have a later edition of this too that I bought myself later on. So that. And by the way, this is a great reference guide if you are looking for somewhere to publish your works. They have the basics on sales, query letters, all that jazz. How much should you charge? Like that kind of thing, and sections about like literary agents, book publishers, and stuff. So they have a veritable list of um, book publishers, small presses, and like specific um, magazines and things like that. So like if you want to write stuff about animals. They have like everything you could think of, like pets, reptiles, miniature donkey talk. There is like a magazine, or there was a magazine about miniature donkeys. So you could do that. They have literary journals, literary reviews, religious things that you could do. They also have a section on playwriting and poetry. So this is extremely useful. Next up, something I got in college is formatting and submitting your manuscript. This is also essential if you are trying to write an actual novel. Use this in a kind of a publishing class that I took in college. So this is everything you would want to know about getting published, getting your stuff ready, getting it in the right and correct form, how to write query letters, all that jazz. This is something a relative bought me. It is called the Street Smart Writer, Self-Defense Against Sharks and Scams in the Writing World. Admittedly, I have not even cracked the spine of this. I should, most definitely, and I do know that once I get into the formatting part of my book, I will definitely be reading this just to make sure that I know everything before I start looking for, where to put it. But yeah, so I can't tell you much about that because I haven't read it yet. But some other school books I had were the New Well-Tempered Sentence, which is a punctuation handbook. This is by Karen Elizabeth Gordon. It is a punctuation handbook for the innocent, the eager, and the doomed. Sounds like, oh dear God, but this is actually pretty funny at times and extremely useful. So, next we have one of my favorites, which is The Writer's Journey. And this is by Christopher Vogler, and it goes over basically the hero's journey, how the majority of stories are done. All of the all of the characters that are involved, the guide of how it works. Pretty cool. So it's also nice because it breaks it down for you in all kinds of stories. They talk about Star Wars a lot and how that pertains to the hero's journey. So yeah, this was one of my favorites when I was in school, and it's very useful. All of these books are very useful. And then I have another one of my favorites, which is How Not to Write a Novel. This is by Howard Milmark and Sandra Newman. 200 Classic Mistakes and How to Avoid Them, a misstep by misstep guide. This is absolutely hilarious. If you don't really want any other writing book right now because you think they are boring, please read this one. This is laugh out loud funny. And not only is it entertaining from start to finish, but you'll also learn things, most of which I think anyway are common sense, but things that you shouldn't put in your novel. So there's that. Then, of course, we have the classic On Writing by Stephen King. This is his memoir of becoming a writer and writing in general. And this one. And then we have some very basic ones full of essays. on writing. So there is Why I Write, which is thoughts on the craft of fiction. There are a lot of essays in here. Let me see if there's any ones you might recognize. Tom Chiarella, Elizabeth Gilbert, Norman Mailer, Terry McMillan, Ann Patchett, David Foster Wallace, Stephen Wright. Then we also have Writers on Writing, which are collected essays from the New York Times. And this has, like, let me see, Joyce Carol Oates, I believe. Yes, Joyce Carol Oates, Alice Hoffman, if you know, like, Practical Magic, David Mamet, Alice Walker. It's like Ellie Wiesel. That's pretty a good essay. Yeah. So it's all kinds of collected essays on that. And then there is also the Writing Life. And this is a collection of essays on how writers think and work. And this is from the Washington Post. And this one is also pretty good. I don't really remember this one as much as I remember the other ones, even though it's very clear that I did read it as I wrote in the margins. So, yeah. Those are also pretty useful if you're trying to get into the whole mindset, or you're wondering, how you're doing with writing. um, I have to say that the one thing that I learned from all of those essays about the writing process is that every writer is different. Some people schedule themselves. Some people kind of give a tentative time of day where they might want to work on writing, but the one thing that every writer does is um, they make time. They make time to work on whatever it is that they're working on, or just to like play around, as long as they are trying to, get the writing juices flowing. Continuing on, I have Letters to a Young Poet by Rainier Maria Rilke, and this is also another one of my favorites. This is basically a series of letters that he wrote. um, yeah, and it was I remember this being very helpful to me at the time when I was in college, just because I was at a place in my education where I was feeling a little bit down on myself, and I was thinking that maybe this wasn't what I should be doing, because I didn't feel like I was, um, really giving it my all, like putting in the work, or I would never be as good as the people featured in here. And these letters really kind of helped me feel better at the time, and remember that, yes, I want to hopefully be published someday, but at the heart of it, I love writing, and I needed a way to express myself. So, yeah. Let's see. Then I have my last technical writing book is Writing in General and the Short Story in Particular. This is by Rust Hills. Yes, that is their name. And yeah, this is just a practical guide to writing short stories. And then I have a couple of books on nonfiction and then some books on poetry. So a couple of my writing textbooks were Writing Life Stories. This is by Bill Rohrback. This is kind of helping you write memoirs that don't suck. Another fun one is Writing Down the Bones by Natalie Goldberg is Freeing the Writer Within. This one, I guess, is a little bit more hippy dippy, I suppose, if you think it's just a little bit silly, some of the essays in here and whatnot, but it's also very encouraging if you are wondering what the fuck you're even doing anymore. So this is a good one, and I would also call it maybe a pretty good beginner um, book for you if you want to. And then this one I purchased myself, and it is Naked Drunken Writing. Shed your inhibitions and craft a compelling memoir or personal story by Ada Lara. And yeah, this is a very nice kind of guide to, again, making your memoirs or essays not suck. After that, I have this book that my parents actually bought me when I was a teenager, and because I liked writing poetry and I did it a lot. So this is a dictionary of poetic terms. And this is extremely, extremely useful whether you are studying poetry or trying to write it. And then the last couple are my textbooks from college. Oops, that was books. So we have the Handbook of Poetic Forms, which, when paired with the Dictionary of Poetic Terms, is extremely helpful. But this is like great because it'll go over, everything you could want. An occasional poem, which is something I actually wrote. Rap. Let's see. A sonnet, which is the big bad boy. And this goes over how to do it and a little bit of history on it. And yeah. Ooh, villanelles. Those are my favorite to do. But yeah, this is also extremely useful. And then one that's kind of fun is Writing Poetry from the Inside Out. This is by Sanford Line. And this is also a great book for if you are a poetic person. This goes over sketching out poems, everything you could possibly want, and helping you with the process. And then there's also a great section down here, which I still use, to be honest, sometimes, which is word groups. And this basically is a prompt section. So, for example, morning, snowfall, mysteries, tracks. Sleepwalk, years, pinch now. Farmer, geese, horizon, gone. Moon, pillow, solitude, kiss. It just kind of goes through and gives you like these associated words that you can use in poetry, or maybe will inspire you to write something. I've used it for poetry, and I've also used it a couple of times for just free writing. So, yeah, that's pretty useful. So those are the writing books that I still have and use from time to time. A couple of them are going to get a lot of use as I go through the editing process. But yeah. So that's a little bit about writing stuff. If that is something that interests you guys and you would like to, I don't know, hear more about writing, how I feel about certain writing things, maybe things I remember from school, I don't know. Let me know. So there we go. Have a great day, guys, and enjoy your reading and writing.